Aloha Mike Ako. Good morning, everyone. This is the October 10th, 2024 Land Use Commission meeting. This is an in-person meeting physically located at the Airport Conference Center in Hawaiian Airlines Terminal Building. It's at 400 Rogers Boulevard on the 7th floor, Suite 700, room number 3, Honolulu, Hawaii 96819. And this meeting is open to the public. Court reporting transcriptions are being done from this Zoom recording of this meeting. For all meeting participants, I'd like to stress the importance of speaking slowly, clearly, and directly into your microphone. And before speaking each time, please state your name and identify yourself for the record. This is an in-person meeting, and please be aware that all meeting participants are being recorded on the digital record of this Zoom meeting, and it will be used for court reporting purposes, and it will be posted on YouTube. Your continued participation is your implied consent to be part of the public record of this event. If you do not wish to be part of the public record, you should exit the meeting now. Also share that from time to time we'll be taking breaks, nominally 5 minutes every hour, and if the meeting continues through the lunch period, we'll take a longer break for lunch. My name is Dan Giovanni, and I have the pleasure to serve as the LUC chair. We have 9 seated commissioners, and 7 of which are here with me today. Michael Yamani, commissioner from Island of Kauai, Commissioner Kamakea Ohelo, and Commissioner Mel Kahele, and Commissioner Brian Lee are from the Island of Oʻahu. Commissioner Carr Smith is from Hawaii Island, and Commissioner Bruce Oʻahu is from Maui Island. Excused from today's meeting are Commissioners Hayashida and Miyasato. Also in attendance are LUC Executive Officer Daniel Orendanker, LUC Chief Planner Scott Derrickson, LUC Staff Planner Martina Segura, LUC Chief Clerk Ariana Kwan, and LUC Attorney General Melissa Goldman. Again, a reminder, court reporting transcriptions are being done from this Zoom recording. Commissioners, I'd like to take a minute up front to just follow through and clarify with how we want to finalize and adopt the order from yesterday's decision. If you recall, Mr. Orendanker said that we tentatively have a meeting date scheduled, an in-person meeting date scheduled purely to adopt that order in late October. But it's a simple denial, and my preference is that it be handled without the need for a formal meeting. So if there's no objection from my commissioners, I would like the authority to sign that order once it's prepared. I'd like it to be prepared by the executive director and staff, circulated to all commissioners for review and comment, then finalized and then sent to me for signature. Do any commissioners have an objection to this approach? If not, I'd like to proceed with it as I've described it. So be it. So staff, please be advised that for the adoption of the order from yesterday, which is a denial of the request for declaratory ruling, we ask that you draft the order, that you circulate it to all commissioners for comment. You receive the comment, you finalize it, and you send it to me for signature. And we can e-scan that. So we will not have to have a meeting. I think it was October 23rd.
24th, Chair.
24th, yeah. So we can take that off the calendar. Thank you very much.
Understood.
Thank you, commissioners. So our 7th order of business for this 2-day meeting is SP 21-147 Mahi Solar. Application to amend SP 21-421 by modifying condition 4 of the LUC's finding of fact, conclusions of law, decision and order certified on September 17th, 2021, to extend the petitioner's timeline for establishing the project by an additional 3 years. At this time, I'd like the parties to identify themselves.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Randall Sakamoto on behalf of Mahi Solar, the petitioner.
Do you have any people with you today?
Yes, thank you. With me today is Mr. Ren Westcoat, also representing Mahi Solar.
Thank you very much. From the county,
Morning, Chair, Board, John Beal, Deputy Corporation Counsel for the City and County of Honolulu, and with me today is Mr. Franz Kreintz.
very good. And from OPSD,
Good morning, Allison Kato, Deputy Attorney General for the Office of Planning and Sustainable Development. Also here is Katia Balaciano from OPSD. Thank you.
thank you very much.
Chair,
Mr. Lee,
yeah, point of clarification. I think the Mahi Solar is SP 21412, and I believe it was recited as 421.
it's a typo in my scripts. Can staff confirm if it's 412 or 421?
It's 412.
Okay, so thank you, Commissioner Lee. It was a typographical error in my script. So to correct, the application is to amend SP 21-412. Thank you. So now I'd like to review the reimbursement policy. So, Mr. Sakamoto, have you reviewed HAR 1515-45.1 regarding the reimbursement hearing expenses?
Yes, Chair.
Could you state your client's position with respect to this policy?
We accept the policy.
Very good, thank you. At this time, we'll address the potential for disclosures and conflicts of interest. In accordance with HRS, 8414, commissioners are not allowed to take any official action affecting a business in which they or a member of their family has a financial interest. They must therefore recuse themselves from this matter if there is any benefit, monetary or otherwise, to themselves or members of their family. Also, in accordance with legal ethical standards, commissioners should disclose any relationships, businesses, social or otherwise, that they may have with the petitioner or its representatives or of any other parties to this proceeding that may give rise to the allegation of bias or impropriety. Do any commissioners have any conflicts of interest or disclosures they'd like to make at this time?
Chair.
Commissioner Lee.
Thank you. I'd like to disclose that 3 years ago, I participated in proceedings at the Honolulu Planning Commission on this petitioner's application, and I presided as chair as well. And so I did check with the State Ethics Commission and the executive director, and the Robert Harris, the executive director, said that there was no ethical conflict. And then I checked with our Madam Deputy Attorney General, and she said that there was no legal impediment. And the standard would be whether I would be impartial. And I do not have any financial interest, unfortunately, in this project, nor do I have any personal relationship with any of the petitioners or their principals or their party. And so I feel that I can be impartial, especially since it was 3 years ago and I don't remember anything about it.
I'm sure you remember something, but nonetheless.
I remember owls, and that's about it. Thanks.
Commissioners, any comment or concern with Mr. Lee, Commissioner Lee proceeding on this matter? I have none. Parties, any comment?
No, Chair.
Thank you. County,
No comment.
state,
Allison Kato, no comment. Thanks.
thank you. So please continue. Commissioners, any other disclosures? I only have an informal disclosure. Mr. Westcoat and I have crossed paths many times in the last 15 years when I was formerly with Hawaiian Electric Company. Yeah, I don't think that will have any influence on my decision making today. So if anybody has any concerns, please let me know. Anybody? Parties?
Randall Sakamoto, no concerns.
Thank you.
John Beal, no concerns.
Thank you.
Allison Kato, no concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. So we shall proceed. Let me briefly explain the procedure for today. Turn the page, Dan. First, I will recognize the written public testimony that has been submitted on this matter. Next, I will call for members of the public who wish to provide oral testimony on this matter. Petitioner will then be called upon to make their presentation. After the petitioner's presentation, I will ask the county and then the state to present their comments. The commissioners will have opportunities to ask questions of the parties at the conclusion of each of their presentations. I will then reopen the floor to the general public again for new and additional oral testimony. Then the parties will be given an opportunity for closing arguments. Finally, the commission will deliberate on the matter based on the testimony and evidence that has been presented. Again, I'm going to remind you that I will be taking breaks from time to time, and if the matter continues through lunch time, we'll take a longer break. Please be informed that relevant records and documents pertaining to this matter can be addressed and accessed for review on the LUC website, and I'll say this twice. https://luc.hawaii.gov/SP21-412. That is https://luc.hawaii.gov/SP21-412. We'll now proceed with public testimony. Ms. Kwan, has there been any written public testimony submitted on this matter?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we received 2 written testimony, one from Department of Ag and one from Hawaii Regional Council of Carpenters.
Have both of these been posted to our website?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Ms. Kwan, are there any members of the public who have indicated they wish to provide oral testimony today?
No, Mr. Chair.
Very good. If they do, they'll be given an opportunity later. We'll now proceed with presentations. Mr. Sakamoto, let me ask if either of your associates plan to give testimony. I'd like to swear them in up front.
Mr. Westcoat will be providing some testimony, and it's possible that one of the planners from G70, Kavika McKeague, who's sitting here, will also be asked to provide some. We don't have anything scheduled for him, but if there are questions pertaining to his area of expertise, he'll be called upon.
Okay, let's take care of Mr. Westcoat. Mr. Westcoat, we state your name and affiliation, and then I'll swear you in.
Ren Westcoat with Mahi Solar.
And you swear the testimony you're about to give today will be the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Please proceed, and we'll address the other gentlemen if and when.
Thank you, Chair. Aloha, Commissioners. My name is Randall Sakamoto, and as I mentioned earlier, I'm here representing the petitioner, Mahi Solar, LLC. In September of 2021, this commission approved a special use permit to allow Mahi Solar to develop a solar energy facility and certain accessory uses on approximately 620 acres of land in Kunia. Go to the next slide. You see. This slide, for the record, refers to 650 acres, but as I mentioned earlier, it is approximately 620 acres of land. Condition 4 of the LUC's approval provided that the project be established within 3 years of the LUC's decision and order. However, the approval also contemplated the possibility of unforeseen circumstances beyond the control of petitioner and allowed petitioner to request an extension of this deadline, provided such request was submitted prior to September of 2024. Due to unforeseen circumstances beyond the control of the petitioner, the project could not be established by the original deadline. As a direct result of the COVID-19 pandemic, there was a global supply chain crisis. This crisis, in turn, caused labor shortages, logistics delays, and significant price increases and on both materials and services. Today, we're here to discuss those circumstances and request that the Land Use Commission give the petitioner a reasonable extension of time to establish the project. We recognize that, with the exception of Chair Giovanni, and I guess Commissioner Lee, none of the other current commissioners were on the commission when this matter was first presented in 2021. So we thought that it might be helpful to provide a brief summary of the project as well as a brief overview of some of the key events which led us to where we are today.
That's a good idea. Please proceed.
Next slide. Oh, go back one, I'm sorry.
Good morning, Commissioners. Ren Westcoat with Mahi Solar. This solar project, in response to Hawaiian Electric's request for proposals, we have submitted. The Mahi Solar project was proposed and was selected by Hawaiian Electric as part of their Stage 2 proposal in 2019. The project is designed as 120 megawatts. That's about, will generate enough power for about 37,000 Oʻahu homes. There is a 40 megawatt hour battery storage system, which the goal of that is to, the purpose of that is to, the solar energy facility produces power during the day. Obviously, the batteries, like some of you may have batteries on your home, store the power that's produced during the day so that it can be dispatched by the utility in the evening. The location of the project is west of Kunia Road, Mauka of Royal Kunia, and downhill from Kunia Lower Ridge farmlands. The area on the illustration, the map that's shaded in blue, is the area that where we would be installing solar panels and also have the agricultural activities. And the project will connect to the existing 138 kV power lines. Next slide, please. So our Mahi Solar proceeded through the process to apply for and received approval for a special use permit or state special permit, a conditional use permit from the city and county, and completed a power purchase agreement with Hawaiian Electric. All of these were approved in 2021. Then, unfortunately, for many reasons, following the pandemic, the global supply chain prices really drove up prices, both, and you've seen it everywhere, right? So for bread, for milk, for lots of things. For equipment, particularly the equipment we were needing, the steel for the racking, the battery systems, and then a lot of the shipping costs, the prices increased far beyond what the project could afford. We had already agreed to a price in the power purchase agreement that was approved by Hawaiian Electric and the Public Utilities Commission. So, you know, we were concerned that the project was just no longer economic. So through the terms in our power purchase agreement, we were forced to declare that project null and void at that time. And the PUC recommended that we bid into the next RFP. This was unfortunate, but that's what happened for this project. However, because we intended to do that, to bid the project in the future, we continued our commitments to pursue the agricultural research, which I'll go into in a little further detail. We contracted with the Hawaii Ag Research Center to test different crops that might grow under solar panels to learn more about that. We also executed a sublease. We purchased, I'm following down. So in the bottom right-hand corner, we purchased a portion of the land from one of the landowners. So Long Road Energy Management is the parent company of Mahi Solar. So Long Road Energy, an affiliate, purchased the land, about 220 acres in March 2023, fully intending to go forward with the project. We rebid the Mahi Solar project into the next Hawaiian Electric RFP, which they refer to as Stage 3. in April of 23, and then we were fortunately selected for an award in December of 23, and we began negotiations with Hawaiian Electric. We started our interconnection study and started that process over again.
So, Mr. Wesco, just a
Yes,
quick clarifying question. There's 620 acres.
yes.
Does Long Road own all of that, or do they own part of it and lease the rest?
Yes, we own part of it. So of the 620 acres, we purchased about 220 acres of that total. So Hartung Brothers Inc. was the owner of the land, portion of the land. We purchased that portion from them.
And who owns the other 400?
The other 400 was later sold to Bear Inc.
Bear.
Yeah. Bear bought Monsanto, and so you'll see a reference into your Monsanto Hawaii owned portion of land. Another portion was purchased by Bear. So we're leasing land
From Bear.
for the remainder of the land from Bear, and then from Fat Law Farms and others. About 300 acres is owned by Fat Law Farms, and we can look at the specific parcels.
Okay, please clarify that at the
Sure.
appropriate time.
And then we did sublease, as is the intention with this project, because agriculture activities are, we plan to work with local farmers and ranchers. We did execute a sublease for about 45 acres of the project area that will be used for hydroponic lettuce farming in between the solar panels. So the goal is eventually to get the entire project, but that was our first sublease, so we felt that was a positive step. Excellent. This next slide, I think addresses some of the questions, Chair, that you had about the land ownership. It's intended to show that while the events surrounding the initial power purchase agreement created significant challenges for the petitioner and its ability to establish a project, the petitioner remained determined to get the project off the ground. They have continued to move forward with the acquisition of these various real estate interests to take control of the petition area. And as Mr. Wesco will explain later, they've taken significant steps to establish the contemplated agrivoltaics program. Just for the record, the petitioner's affiliate, LSH Land Holdings LLC, entered into an option agreement with Monsanto to acquire a leasehold easement in 32.5 acres of land, identified by tax map key number 9-2-1, parcel 1. In February of 2022, the petitioner and the owner of lot 882-A, which is a 425.963 acre parcel of land that's part of the petition area, entered into a long-term lease agreement. Then in March of 2023, petitioner's affiliate acquired the fee simple interest in two of the created condominium units in the condominium project known as Kunias Section 6 condominium project. I'll explain in more detail about that later. And then, as I mentioned, pursuant to condition number 1 of the SUP, petitioner has completed the agricultural plan for the project and has continued to invest time and money to execute that plan, including engaging the Hawaii Agricultural Research Center to conduct research on what crops can be successfully grown between the solar panels. Just to elaborate on the what I said earlier about this Kunia Section 6 condominium, the land is owned by Hartung Brothers Hawaii LLC. And in March of 2023, they created a agricultural condominium property regime over their land. And this included parts of the petition area. So as a result of the creation of these agricultural condominium property regime units,
Mahi Land Holdings LLC, petitioner's affiliate, acquired units 2 and 4 of this condominium project. So anyway, that's basically a little background of why some of the tax map key numbers may not be exactly the way they're reflected on the petition. Because when the CPR was created, the city assigned new TMK numbers to these parcels. Okay. Next slide. So since we began,
So name again.
yes,
State your name.
Yes, Ren Westcoat, Mahi Solar. We have been working with the Hawaii Ag Research Center and funding right now, I believe we're in the third year of 4 years of funding for Park to work on an existing solar farm and do testing both under the panels, between the panels, and then out in open area to determine what crops could grow successfully in our local environment under or between solar panels. They have since tested, I believe, 35 different crops. Some of them are shown here in the photos: carrots, jalapeno peppers, broccoli, celery, asparagus, and then some. There's like a soba, which is the bottom right-hand corner as a ground cover. The goal being to, in a research setting, to understand, starting with research, understanding what crops can grow successfully. Are there certain kinds of, what's the water use? What kind of soil amendments need to be made? So sort of understanding the best practices so that we can share that information with farmers and with other solar companies to hopefully encourage more use of solar land for agriculture. So we have had many farmers come onto the site and want to learn more about what might be possible to grow under and between solar panels. The goal is to move, of course, from research into commercial farming throughout the petition area. So we are talking with different farmers about how this research might be expanded on a commercial scale so that farmers can use the land successfully. It does take some, as you can imagine, farming under solar panels does take some adjustment for both the farmer and the solar company. But we have so far, the discussions have been pretty productive. Farmers tend to be conservative, like solar developers, I guess. So there is sort of a learning curve and talking with each other and figuring out, can we adjust the way as in operating a solar farm that we service the panels? So maybe we don't need to drive vehicles down every row, which we're used to. And can the farmers find ways to work with their equipment and plant and harvest and irrigate successfully in a solar farm? So there's definitely some give and take, but we've had really good discussions. And the goal of agrivoltaics is to share the same land for both. So we can have local energy and local food production from the same acre. And so that's really the goal. We've had really good discussions so far. We've had lots of folks out to visit our demonstration site. And it looks great. I mean, having been to many solar farms, it is candidly the best looking solar farm. Once you have vegetables, you have taro growing under, you have carrots, it looks great from a solar perspective. And it also is having vegetation, low level vegetation growing under the solar actually can keep the air cooler, slightly cooler, which improves the efficiency of the panels a little bit. So we believe there's a synergy here that we are looking forward to pursuing. We did, as I mentioned, we signed our first sublease for 45 acres for a hydroponic lettuce producer that has a trough about 8 feet wide and about 12 inches high that is built between the solar panel rows because lettuce does not like full sun. So it wants shade during the morning, shade in the afternoon. And so it gets maybe 4 or 5 hours of sun instead of 8. And the lettuce grows, it's much more, it grows better, it doesn't have the burning. And that's really what we're shooting for.
Randall Sakamoto. This next slide just recaptures, I think, what we've already covered, but just to go through it very quickly. You can see here at the very far left when the initial power purchase agreement was first established. Following that, there were significant disruptions and enormous cost increases caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. Thereafter, there was the first amendment of the power purchase agreement, which had to be later declared void, and the second amendment of the power purchase agreement, which was later rejected by the Public Utilities Commission. Then ultimately, as Mr. Westcote explained, Mahi Solar was forced to declare that PPA null and void. Thereafter, Hawaiian Electric Company issued a new RFP, and Mahi Solar was the successful bidder in that process and received the award. And basically, that's what has taken place during that timeline. Next slide. As noted earlier, the Land Use Commission DNO was approved on September 17, 2021. And condition number 4 of the DNO requires that the project be established within 3 years of the Land Use Commission's decision and order. Next slide, please. So initially, our request was to request an extension of the time to establish a project by 3 years. Later, when we realized the significant hurdle that still needed to be overcome, which was the power purchase agreement with HECO, we had modified our request to the Planning Commission to be the later of 3 years after the Land Use Commission issues its decision and order on this amendment, or the date 2 years after the date that the power purchase agreement is signed. The city expressed some concerns at the Planning Commission level with regards to that request because they felt, I think it was an open-ended request, not knowing when the power purchase agreement was going to be signed. And so after discussions with Mahi Solar and the city, we settled on a request for a 5-year extension of time. We're trying to balance out the need to have a definitive date for establishing the project, but also a reasonable one so that we could accomplish it with all the things which still remain to be done. And there are quite a few things which are left even after today. If this commission approves, essentially the modification to condition number 4 of your DNO would basically say that the project be established within 5 years after the date of the decision and order approving this amendment. Okay. Yeah, that's all I have for our presentation, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Sakamoto and Mr. Fresco. So I'm going to invite the parties to see if they have any direct questions for you, and then we'll go to commissioners. So city and county, any comment or questions?
We have no comment or questions.
Thank you. OPSD,
Allison Cotter, no questions. Thank you.
thank you. Commissioners, comments or questions? Commissioner Yamane?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of questions for the petitioners. I think on your statement, on your presentation, you said 40 megawatt hours, but I think you meant 480. Correct?
Yeah. Ren Westcote Mahi Solar, 480 megawatt hours. Apologies.
Thank you. Could you tell me what in your opinion, establishment of the project means? Like, what does that mean in your opinion?
Mr. Sakamoto, do I have an opinion on that? Yeah. Ren Westcoat, Mahi Solar. I understand that to mean the completion of construction.
Is that basically your in-service state or not? Just,
Yeah, I think that would be when we complete the project and it becomes commercially operational.
commercial,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah. So that means HECO testing, it's connected to the grid, delivering power to the grid.
Got it, thanks. And then,
Let me add, I think the term in the PPA is GCOD, General Commercial Operation Date.
Guaranteed commercial operation. Yeah, COD. Yeah, commercial operations. Yeah.
thanks. And, so my understanding is what you have been awarded from HECO, but you're in negotiations with the PPA. So there's no signed PPA with Hawaiian Electric right now.
That's correct. A few years ago, when we came before the commission, the PPA was signed and that was completed. Now it is not. We're still in negotiations with Hawaiian Electric. We're still in the interconnection study. The interconnection requirement study is still going on. So there's some still work to do there.
Okay, so you're kind of in the beginning phases. Basically, you're the finalist for this, in this area.
There, the RFP selects, the Hawaiian Electric selects several winners or awardees. So there's 3 or maybe 4 on Oʻahu that were selected. So they move forward with all of them. So that's the final award. So there's no more selection after that. The 4 they select, they begin PPA negotiations.
Okay, so you need to complete the interconnection first, and then that cost gets added to the PPA maybe, and then that's further negotiated with Hawaiian Electric.
Correct. The interconnection study needs to be completed. So that's to tell us how do we tie into the grid? What equipment is necessary? Making sure the equipment is responsive, as to the grid requirements. Then that goes into a list of equipment and a list of costs. And so then we know the final, what those final costs are, and that gets put into the power purchase agreement before we sign.
And then how long, so the 5 years, can you kind of give me like the process, interconnection, PPA negotiations, PUC approval? Like how do you come up with the 5 years? Is that enough? Is that too long? Too short?
Sure. I think it's enough. I think, so I would say that it's just, everything goes well. We complete the interconnection study, we sign the power purchase agreement in the next 6 months. Then we have commission approval, which if everything goes well, 6 months for commission approval. We proceed, continue with the engineering, conditional use permit, grading and building permits, procuring equipment, which now, even though the prices have come back down, some of the lead times for transformers are over 24 months. So we have to order some of that. So again, if everything goes well, I think we will be able to complete in about 4 years. Maybe a little longer, but we want to leave some buffer in here so we don't have to come back again if we run over by a month. So I'm hoping, I'm sort of giving it an over under on 4 years, a little more than 4 years. But that's why we thought 5 years was a reasonable amount of time to request.
Thank you. No more questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Commissioners? Commissioner Oʻahu.
Good morning. By the way, I like your project. I like how you're implementing solar with ag. And it leads me to the question, how much acreage you're looking at utilizing to actually farm? And how hard is it to find the people to do it with the reduction?
So that's a good question. The first part is easy. We're looking to farm all of the acres except areas where should be, for safety reasons, we shouldn't be farming. So the battery systems, very high voltage substations, but we're looking to farm most of the rest of the area. Some areas we have irrigation, some areas we don't. Some areas are pretty steep, so that's probably going to do ranching in those areas. A lot of it is flat with irrigation. So to answer the first question, we're hoping to farm almost all of it. To answer the second question, it is still ongoing discussions. We had, we got our first farmer signed up. We're looking at another farmer. Mamaki tea grows really well under the panel, so we're talking with farmer about Mamaki tea. And I think it's going to take some time to get the project, all leased out to farmers.
And second question, the changes from COVID with the cost increase in comparative to what it is now, the cost, what makes it feasible where you can move forward with this project? Because cost of materials on the construction side is still pretty insane. So how does this project become feasible after the cost increase?
That's a good question. Some of the equipment that we needed have come way down in price. So the batteries, that was almost half of the cost of the equipment. That was tripled in price, and now it's come way back down to where it was before. So same thing for a lot of the steel. A lot of the steel was just gone through the roof for the racking, that goes under the panels. That's come way down. So a lot of those costs have come down, and during the supply chain crisis, they were going up so fast, we couldn't even get a bid. They wouldn't even lock in a bid. They said, ask us next week because it's going to cost more. So now that has stabilized. So the market's stabilized for equipment. Banks are willing to finance. So all of those factors are good. Also, we increased the price in our PPA because some costs, they have not come down. So the price we bid before, the problem was we were locked down here and we had to go in with a higher bid to cover just the inflation generally.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Commissioner Lee?
Thank you. Mr. Westcoat, my question will prove that I don't remember what happened 3 years ago, but what is your business plan as far as leasing the land to farmers? Is it market rate, below market, subsidized? Can you give us more info on that?
Sure. Also, I just realized that reading glasses were one difference from 3 years ago. I didn't have these. The difference, Ren Westcoat Mahi Solar, remind me of the question.
Commissioner Lee, I'm sorry, would you repeat your question?
Sure, and I know you answered this 3 years ago, so I'm sure you have some idea, but what is your business plan for the project as far as leasing the land to farmers? Is it, at market rate, or do you have some other strategy? Thank you.
Thanks for the question. Sorry, I spaced on it. We are planning to sublease land to the farmers at $1 per acre per year, so well below market rate. And then we'll also provide assistance with setting up some irrigation with some equipment, other things.
Thank you.
Chair,
Commissioner Carr-Smith?
thank you. Yeah, I too, like my fellow commissioner, who was curious about how, if it didn't pencil out before, and now you've added this whole component of agriculture, how that works. I think you addressed that, but I'm curious about liability. How do you deal with liability of your solar farm with farmers working around your equipment all the time? And I also wondered, are your panels rotating, or whatever the proper term is?
Yes, Ren Westcoat Mahi Solar. We have several steps included in the application and sublease process for farmers. One is a training program so that we educate farmers and ranchers about the solar equipment, how it moves, what not to touch, and safety protocols. So this is similar to anything we do with subcontractors that work in the solar field. In the solar area, we go through a training with them before they come on site. The sites are fenced, right, so that not just anyone can walk in. So we have strict safety protocols. We're also, I think there will still be some, that we're still working out the exact sort of insurance requirements, and so making sure we understand the liability. Yeah.
But this was not part of your original application for the special permit, correct? Or it was?
It was, yeah, all this was
Okay,
included.
okay.
Yeah, we're just able to provide now a little bit more detail as we've done some research and know a little bit more.
Understood. Thank you.
Commissioners? I have a few questions for you. And for the record. So in stage 3 of the HECO RFP, they had a targeted general commercial operation date for all proposals. Do you recall what that was?
I do. The targeted guaranteed commercial operations date was December 1st, 2027.
So now you're looking and thinking about 2028 or 2029. So what's the consequence of that?
We would have to negotiate that in the PPA. So those are still, that's exactly what we're talking about, is if there's a delay caused for some reason. So that's still being negotiated with the utility.
So you're basically looking to negotiate an exemption to the term of the award from 2027 to some later date.
Based on certain factors. So I think we'd be looking at if there is some sort of delay that's, not the responsibility of our company, we should be able to get an extension.
Thank you. An absolute eligibility requirement of that stage 3 RFP was a demonstration of absolute site control. So without going through all the particulars of the leases and what you bought and what's changed, let me just simply say, have you absolutely satisfied the HECO team that you have absolute site control for your project?
We have absolutely satisfied the HECO team.
Okay, that's big, so thank you. How are you providing irrigation water, and what's the source of that water, and do you have that water secured for the duration of the project for the farmers?
We have a portion of we have a water available through the Cunilla Water Association. One of the landowners from whom we are leasing land, Fat Law Farms, they have access to Cunilla water, and we are able to access that water for our farmers. There's some areas that already have irrigation infrastructure installed. Most of this area has been used for some type of farming. And then some areas, there's no irrigation installed. And those are the steeper sloped areas that we're looking at for ranching. And then in those cases, the ranchers would truck water up for the livestock as needed.
So do you have any issues of water allocation or uncertainty about providing the water that the farmers need?
No.
So are you using conventional heights above the ground of the panels, or are they different for agricultural purposes?
We are using conventional heights. The panels are tracking, which really helps with space for moving equipment.
Articulate?
Yeah, exactly. So the single axis tracking panels, if you imagine sort of like a long table, the panels will rotate, face the east during the morning, and then they'll rotate. So they're sort of flat, very slowly, very flat at noon, and then turn to tilt toward the west in the afternoon. So that allows for us to adjust the panels as needed if equipment needs to move between the panels. The height, to answer your question, the height is typical, sort of a commercial height. The midpoint's usually between 4 feet and 6 feet off the ground, that pivot point. However, we are adjusting the spacing in certain areas. For example, the hydroponic troughs that I mentioned are about 8 feet wide. So we're keeping the panels spaced further apart in those areas. So we're changing the design of the solar field in different areas to accommodate different types of farming.
Okay. Mr. Sakamoto, when you presented the timeline of the power purchase agreement, it noted that you had negotiated a second amendment. I presume that's with HECO, and then went to the PUC for approval. Is that correct?
Randall Sakamoto, I'm sorry, Chair, are you referring to the initial power purchase agreement?
Yeah, the initial part, it says it was declined. I'm trying to figure out who declined it. Was it ECO or was it PUC?
As far as I understand, I do not represent, Mahi Solar in front of the Public Utilities Commission. However, my understanding is that Mahi Solar had the right to declare it, to terminate the PPA. They notified HECO of that fact. HECO agreed and acknowledged Mahi Solar's right to do that. And then HECO then informed the Public Utilities Commission that it was essentially a mutual decision to terminate that initial power purchase agreement.
That's a little different story than what's represented on your chart. What it says here is that the PUC declined a second amendment. And I'm presuming that that second amendment was agreed to with HECO or never would have been presented to the PUC. Is that correct, Mr. Westcoat?
Yes, Ren Westcoat. Yes, so first, so the power purchase agreement was initially approved by the PUC. Then we sought an amendment to increase the price.
Correct.
That was declined by the PUC. And then we declared, so the power purchase agreement is still good. They negged our amendment. And so we declared the PPA null and void.
So the PUC did not approve the price increase.
Exactly.
So then you decided to exercise your right to void the contract. And at the time that the PUC declined to approve this amendment for increased pricing, did they also officially steer you to the next competitive, or was that something you did on your own?
That is correct. The PUC said, we decline your request for a price increase and recommend instead that you apply to the next Hawaiian Electric.
Okay, that makes sense. This all adds up now. So then you did apply to stage 3 and you were awarded and now you're proceeding. Okay, so for the interconnection to the 138, which I presume is in the nearby or runs through the property, are you going to interconnect with an existing substation, or is that part of what you're looking at?
Part of the project includes a Hawaiian Electric switching station.
A new one?
Correct, a new Hawaiian Electric switching station with a double circuit 138 kV to tie into the Kahe Oʻahu power line.
And that's what you're addressing now in your interconnection requirement study?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. I want to follow up on Commissioner Yamane's question about what's left that could take the 5 years. I know you've mentioned several things and you've referred to the IRS, but can you kind of like step us through in what you foresee in terms of major steps sequentially that might consume these 4 to 5 years you're asking for?
Yes, Chair, hang on one second. Major steps will include executing the power purchase agreement, submitting the Public Utilities Commission approval of the power purchase agreement, the completion of engineering for permitting, submitting receiving the conditional use permit, receiving the grading permit, building permit, and then we're going to also have to complete a final energy report, and all that will be taken into to secure commercial financing for the project. So that's a major step. Financing is normally what we think of as the start of construction. So then there's about an roughly 18-month construction period, and then a HECO testing phase, which is now about 5 months. So that includes, parallel, we will be testing the substation will be able to receive backfeed power once that's accepted. And then we will be able to commission our solar equipment and the batteries, and then finally reach commercial operations. And then also within that time, I did mention the procurement, so that hopefully that procurement, we want to start that soon, so that doesn't delay things, but the procurement's also in there as well.
So I'm particularly interested in the procurement piece. I'm glad you brought that up. So when do you lock in the pricing for all the steel and the components and the batteries and all of that? How far from now?
We should be able to lock all that in the next 6 months. We're particularly concerned about transformers and breakers. Those, as I mentioned, have about a 2-year plus lead time. So those we want to order as soon as possible, both to make sure the equipment arrives in time for construction and to lock in the pricing. Panels, we already have, for solar panels, we have a sort of frame agreement, I guess it's called, with a major manufacturer. So we have that pricing secured. The company is buying a large amount to cover many projects, of which Mahi is just one. So we have the frame agreement for panels. We also would like to hopefully secure our contractor. The contractor usually purchases racking and then some other electrical equipment. So that's another point at which we will lock in pricing. That's probably in the 6 to 12 month time frame. We'd want to secure an EPC contractor.
How about the best?
The best we will make our first order within 6 months. So that would lock in the pricing there.
So if I go back to, I forget the date that we gave approval, was it 2021? We were looking at the same scenario and the pricing went nuts and the project fell apart. So do you perceive that risk to be, there's always a risk, I understand that, but do you perceive that risk to be essentially equivalent to what it was when you were before asking for this project to be approved the first time?
I think understanding that can't predict everything, I believe looking back now, that period with the supply chain crisis was certainly unprecedented in the market. Not to say that something crazy like a global pandemic might not happen again, but I believe the risk now of that uncertainty in pricing is much lower.
So if some new president puts 20% tariffs on everything, you feel confident you could navigate through that at this power purchase agreement?
That is always a concern, but I believe that we are doing what we can to manage that risk.
I understand that's a hypothetical. In general, and I don't need to know specific numbers, but how much did you have to increase your pricing stage 3 versus stage 2 for this project?
The price we proposed in stage 2, I'm going to have to double check the price that we proposed in stage 2. It's escaping my mind right now. But we did increase the price. Let's see.
Don't need absolutes.
Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah, it was in the low 100s. So per megawatt hour. So I think it was somewhere in the 105 to 110 range. Again, I'm somewhere in that range. And the current price is 175. So the price increased significantly.
Yeah. So it sounds like 60% more. Okay. Thank you. I don't have any other questions, commissioners. Thank you. We'll take a break now and it's 10 o'clock. We'll come back at 10:10. We're under recess. On the record, in session. So thank you for presentation. We just stand by. We may have more questions later. We'll now proceed with county's comments on this proposal.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning again. John Dubiel, Deputy Corporation Counsel for the city. The city, supports this project and thinks it's overall a good project. We proposed when they initially applied to modify condition 4 to extend it by another 3 years after the PPA agreement. Our big concern was that we don't want this to be indefinite. They may have to renegotiate another PPA. We just didn't know. And we understood that there was about a 3-year construction time, but that it may be another year of to negotiate the PPA agreement. And we agreed to 5 just to give them some extra lead time. So we're not before this commission again in 3.5 or 4 years trying to get approval again. And, having the same questions of why is this taking so long and, wasting your time. But I think that 5 years is the right amount of time. And I think that's about it. So hopefully this can be finished and, we recommend that the commission approve the amendment to condition 4 to 5 years after the date of the commission's order. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sakamoto, any questions from the county?
Randall Sakamoto, no questions, Chair.
OPSD, any questions for the county?
Allison Cato, no questions.
Thank you. Commissioners, Commissioner Lee.
Thank you, Chair. For the county, was the 5 years the staff's recommendation from DPP?
Yes, it was.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Commissioners, anything further? Thank you. OPSD?
Allison Cato, Deputy Attorney General for OPSD. OPSD continues to support this project and approval of petitioner's request for the extension. The original deadline states that the LUC may grant an extension due to unforeseen circumstances beyond the control of petitioner. And as petitioner has described in detail, there were unforeseen circumstances that led to this delay. We understand the renegotiation process is currently underway and will take some time to complete. So the proposed extension of 5 years from the date of this DNO appears reasonable, particularly as petitioner appears to be actively working towards progress on this project. And the changes described by petitioner to the project appear minor, and the reasons OPSD originally supported the special permit remain the same as they were in 2021. It's temporary and beneficial use that will contribute to the state's clean energy goals. And the petitioner is also making active efforts to establish agrivoltaics on the property, which is of interest to the state, given dealing with competing interests and limited resources. And just wanted to note that DOT and DOA also provided written comments on the application to DPP, and neither had any objections to the extension. Additionally, OPSD reached out to Hawaii State Energy Office, and they noted that they have no concerns and with the extension request, and they continue to be in strong support of this project. Other comments? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gato. Mr. Sakamoto, any other question?
Randall Sakamoto, no questions, Chair. Thank you.
County, any questions?
John Beal, no questions.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions for OPSD? Thank you, Ms. Gato. This time we'll now give a second opportunity for public testimony, if any. Ms. Kwan, has any members of the public indicated they wish to provide testimony on this matter?
Seeing none, Chair.
Thank you. So, this time we'll take some closing arguments, if any, from petitioner.
Randall Sakamoto, thank you, Chair. I just have a short statement to make. Mahi Solar is extremely grateful that this commission recognized the importance of this project and gave its approval in 2021. And in spite of all the daunting challenges that threatened to end this project before it could even get started, Mahi Solar continues to believe in the merits of the project and continues to invest time, energy, and money in securing land control and engaging the Hawaii Agricultural Research Center to help identify those crops that could be successfully grown on this property. On top of that, they went through the RFP process a second time. They are going through the PPA process a second time. Of course, they've come to the Land Use Commission a second time. They have to go back to the Public Utilities Commission a second time. They need to go back and get another conditional use permit. And as Mr. Westcott explained, they still need to get financing and all the ministerial permits like building permits. It's a long road to go down, but they remain committed to the project and to making it a reality. And, we respect for the request that the commission approve our requested 5-year time extension. Thank you.
Thank you. County, any comment?
John DeBeal, no comment.
OPSD,
Alison Kato, no comments.
commissioners? I only have one comment, and I'll say it now instead of deliberations, but when you were before us in 2021, there was absolute confidence you could do all of those things that need to be done in 3 years. And I suspect that you're going to try and do them in 3 years or less this time. And it looks like it went from 3 to 5 as a result of what was before the county, because they wanted just to put in that extra time. If I'm misrepresenting that, let me know, but you didn't want to come, I presume you're hopeful they can do it in 3, but the 5 should cover it. And that's why you wanted to add more time.
That's John DeBeal. That's exactly right, Chair. The hope is they can get this done in 3, but we didn't want there to be this open-ended thing with the PPA agreement, because we kind of assumed it was going to be about 3 years after the PPA agreement is finalized. And we did not want to leave that open-ended, because if, let's say, that PPA agreement fails again, they would never have to come back before this commission if there was this open-ended kind of when it gets finalized. And that was our big concern. So to both alleviate their concerns of a PPA agreement and alleviate our concerns of this perpetual open-endedness, we recommended 5 years instead.
Okay, fair enough. I want to revisit this IRS, Mr. Westcott, if you don't mind, because that seems like it's front and center of what's going on right now, and also could either drive schedule or cost of the project. Can you further elaborate on what your perspective is on the status and the probability of bringing that to close in some fashion that will not negatively impact this project in some significant way?
Ren Westcoat, Mahi Solar. I am confident that the IRS is going to conclude in the next few months. So far, the facility study portion is nearly complete. That seems fine. That's for the equipment that's going to be built. The system impact study is the electrical portion. How does the project interact with the grid? There has been a lot more detail as Chair, as you know, they're pursuing these grid forming inverters, which are, pretty cutting edge stuff. So it may conclude in the next month or two, but I want, it may take it may take into January, February. So far, we haven't uncovered any problems, so they're still proceeding. The power purchase agreement, previously, those two, well, when we came before the commission in 21, that was all done. The PPA was signed. Previously, we could sign the PPA before the IRS was complete. Now the new process is, or the old new process is now the IRS has to be completed before then the PPA will wrap up everything. So the commission can get the whole package at one time. So because the IRS has to be completed and then we have to complete the PPA, that's why I'm sort of hedging my bets a little bit and thinking it's going to take a few more months to get the PPA executed.
So my takeaway from what you just said is that the technical issue is not the substation design and equipment that goes in the substation. It's the grid forming and inverters.
That is the
their
most
specification that's still uncertain.
correct. That is the most sophisticated portion of the IRS right now. But to be clear, no problems have come up. It's just the process of getting it vetted with the various consultants.
And you don't perceive a financial issue with that, or that you do?
I don't believe so. Uh, Recently, after the interconnection studies have been completed, in some cases, we get a big bill, like the utility says it's going to cost you an extra $3 million. We don't seem to be talking about those kind of concerns now for Mahi Solar. So I'm not, those issues haven't come up. So I'm not concerned about the cost, or overly concerned about the timing dragging on much beyond the next few months.
Very good. Commissioner Lee.
Mr. Westcoat, does your project intend on seeking IRS tax credits using the Inflation Reduction Act?
Yes, we do. That's planned into the model.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. County, you have any closing argument or statement beyond what you've just said?
John DeBeal, no additional closing. Thank you.
Any additional closing, OPSD?
Allison Cato, no.
Thank you. Commissioners, Chair will entertain a motion regarding how we should proceed as a matter. We are officially in deliberations. Commissioners, what is your pleasure? Commissioner Lee?
Chair, I move to approve an amendment to condition 4 of the SUP in accordance with the Honolulu County Planning Commission's DNO decision and order to extend the time for the project for 5 years from the date of the Land Use Commission's decision and order.
Thank you. Do I have a second to that motion?
Second.
Commissioner Oʻahu seconds the motion. We're open for discussion. Can you speak to your motion?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, these kind of big projects are very difficult. And so I think we should all understand that with the changing conditions and the economic environment. 120 megawatts with 480 megawatt BESS. I mean, that's almost double what the island of Kauai would use on a daily basis. So that's just gives you some idea of the scope of this project. And these things are not easy to do. And I commend the petitioner for trying to work with farmers and agriculture and trying to mitigate some of the concerns of the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Oʻahu, may I speak to your second?
Exactly what was mentioned prior. I wish you guys luck, success, because if you win, we win. So, aloha.
Thank you. Commissioners, any further comment? So I just got one. I also support the project and your efforts. I know it's very difficult, especially in retrospect, what's happened in the last few years. I'm hopeful you don't run into uncertainty in the next few years. But no matter what happens, I'd like to remind everybody, this is agricultural land. And the owners of this land, you now own part of it and you lease part of it. But if either collapses and doesn't go forward, or when it does go forward and it's finished 35 years from now, it's agricultural land, and that's important that it be restored to that full capability. With that, Mr. Orendaker, would you please do a roll call vote on the motion?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The motion is to approve an amendment to condition 4 in accordance with the city and county's decision to extend the time for 5 years. Commissioner Lee,
Aye.
Commissioner Oʻahu,
Aye.
Commissioner Yamane,
Aye.
Commissioner Kamakeo,
Aye.
Commissioner Kahele,
Aye.
Commissioner Carr-Smith,
Aye.
Chair Giovanni.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The motion passes unanimously.
Very good. Thank you very much, gentlemen and ladies. And is there any further business on this matter? I don't see any, so thank you for your time.
Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you, commissioners.
Yeah, appreciate your presentations and your preparations. Is there any further business to discuss? Let me open that to commissioners. No further business. I declare this meeting adjourned.